Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Lisa Townsend is a creativity and mindfulness coach who helps business owners get unstuck and moving. She describes herself as being an introvert who loves to network with complete strangers. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, Lisa.
Oh, thank you for having me, Liz. It's a pleasure.
Now, your company's called Change Your Badge, which I think is a brilliant and very interesting name.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me something about what it is you do.
So I'm a coach. I'm a business coach, in a nutshell, if you like. Although I do appreciate that the word coaching is quite a broad topic for lots of people. So I guess for me, I'm really love the tools of coaching. So that's not telling people how to do things or taking them through a particular framework or template of how to work and run their businesses, but more about helping them to discover the solutions to the problems that they've got. And mainly, I guess, the people that I work with in my business, they're in those first couple of years of starting up, and they really want to dig in and lean into that business, working on their business. But they might be a bit mixed up about what it is that they do, who it is that they help, maybe a bit overloaded with the just masses of information there is out there on how to run your business and what you should be doing. So perhaps they're feeling a bit overwhelmed at that stage, and have probably got stuck somewhere in the weeds of their business. So they're really stressing about social media, or they're stressing about those types of things, maybe rather than being in a headspace where they can think a bit more clearly about moving their business forward.
And how did you come up with the name Change Your Badge?
Oh, well, it was a bit of an in-joke really in our house, because I really love a bit of mindset and looking at how the way that you're thinking about yourself and the perspective you have can really influence then the actions that you take and the decisions that you make. And so in my house, if one of us was having a kind of a day where we were very negative, or everything was about should and maybe comparing ourselves to others, we'd have this phrase of changing up your badge. So changing your perspective really, and putting yourself in a different frame of mind, and taking off that badge of I can't do it, and putting a different one on. And so when I set up my business, I was very much working with people who wanted to work creatively but perhaps didn't really recognize that in themselves, and so that's where the name came from.
Love it. And how long ago did you start, and what was it that drew you to this sector in the first place?
So I started, I left my job, my full-time job, to concentrate on my business just in late 2019, so just before Christmas. And what drew me to coaching, so before that I was working as a business manager, if you like, for an art centre, for a charitable organisation. And I was already doing lots of training. In the last couple of years, I'd been training in some coaching programmes and accreditation, because I just completely fell in love with those tools. And I'd worked for the previous year on in a group format with a group of other women on how I was going to take the love of coaching and the tools I was using, and then turn them into something where I could work on it as a business. And I went through lots of different kind of ideas really of what that might look like. But then I got clear that I really wanted to help people in their work. And it was what I was doing more and more in my office job. I was always breaking things down for people and really seeing, where they might be able to spend their funding on their creative project, or, where we were going to kind of help out. So So yeah, so it just seemed right to combine the two things really. Obviously, I didn't know that there was a pandemic coming, and and 2020 would look very different to how I first thought it might. But it was really the love of coaching tools that really drew me to making a business out of it.
And you mentioned that you like to work with startups, but are they businesses from a particular sector, or do you work with all sorts of people?
I do work with all sorts of people on all sorts of different offers and services, really. I tend to work more with services than I do products as a rule. But I might work with people that are online businesses, or I do also have clients that I work with that are local to me as well. So I kind of work like both ends, like globally across the magic of the internet. But I'm also really passionate about community. It's one of my core values. So I really like to input into local projects where I am in Cornwall. So I have quite a lot of variety. I guess the thing that really kind of like they all sit under the same umbrella is that creative way of working. So the traditional ways of perhaps setting up a business or bringing it together don't really work for them. They tend to bring them more stress than they do ease. So that's probably the common theme between the type of person I work with.
And you mentioned that you started not that long before the pandemic began. So how did you have to shift things during the lockdown?
Oh, yeah, all over the shop, really. So I had to get more focused, but also get a little bit broader, which sounds, completely in opposition. But I, in the lockdown, so I've got a partner, my husband, our whole dynamic within our family and our work changed. He lost his job, so I had to perhaps go back to using some of my more business manager and project management skills throughout that first part, really, to get income, to get some income coming in. But in turn, that really made me think differently and niche down for my kind of one-on-one offering where I was helping in coaching. So it was quite a weird experience, really. And there was lots of experimentation throughout the pandemic. And I still feel like that is, part of what I'm doing, finding out what works and what doesn't as people shift and, try to find their way through whatever this new normal is for them. Networking was perhaps one of the biggest things that changed for me and that I really dug into, because the one thing I did know was that building relationships was how I wanted to grow my business. So that was a bit of an anchor point for me, I guess, throughout the pandemic. That's what I kept coming back to time and time again.
And was networking something that you were already doing before the pandemic, or did you start doing that during that lockdown?
Yeah, I was already doing it, but because now I had my sole focus on my business, I kind of dove straight into it and thought, this is what I should be doing. If I'm going to grow my business, building relationships, I need to network. And that completely made me after the first couple of months, I was like, yeah, I can't keep doing that because it was too much. And I really started to realize how I identify with being an introvert was going to impact how I built relationships and how I invested my time and energy into that.
Yeah, it says on your website that you're an introvert who loves to network with complete strangers. So I was wondering how that works. Yeah,
weird, right? Yeah, so what I kind of learned, what seemed most available when I started networking was turning up to groups. So turning up to groups and networking with the people that were there, that showed up. And of course, everything was on Zoom. And I found that utterly draining because I didn't know who was going to be there. I don't really do small talk. So I find small talk really, really draining. Not because I don't want to get to know a person, but I tend to do that around a theme, or maybe diving into the real, finding out what people think about the big things in life. So that was really difficult. And also there was limited opportunity to connect with people one-on-one or in a very small, intimate group. And I quickly realized that's how I like to work best, and kind of where I give like the best value as well, really. So then I kind of had a rethink about what it was that I liked about networking and what was really making it difficult for me to sustainably do it. And it wasn't the strangest thing. So I love meeting new people. I absolutely love it. And it really gives me a sense of energy. But it was too many people at once that was the issue for me. And also kind of really getting stuck into a meaningful conversation. And once I figured those pieces out about myself, networking just became so much easier and much more in my control. Of who I was deciding to meet with and how we were deciding to do it. And I just started meeting all different types of people through using that kind of like method and strategy, really.
So what kind of meetings do you like to go to, and how do you make it work for you?
So generally, there'll be one-on-one or small groups. So I'd say no more than like 5 to 7 people all together. I really love setting up meetings around a theme or a common like problem or struggle or like way of working, anything like that, really. So we both know what we're turning up to and what we're going to talk about. And I love getting to know people that way. It feels really meaningful, and the connection feels so much more real and is easier to keep on with then, because you have a lot more information about that person, and you kind of know then whether you're going to be able to keep that going or not, whether you have similar interests and similar views. Coming out of that, sometimes I've collaborated with people. People have referred me or recommended me to other people. There's been kind of like podcasts or workshops or opportunities to get in front of maybe if they have a different audience or a wider audience, blog posts, all that type of thing. And so, yeah, it really comes from that spending time with that person one-on-one and finding that connection from the start, a thread to follow, really.
So how do you go about finding meetings to go to?
So I'm part of some groups. So that's part of one of the things I invest in for my business, is that I'm a member of a couple of different groups. And so that provides a really good place to meet people because we're already joined under a common theme of that group. So that means that you're quite likely going to be like-minded or like-valued. So that's a really good place. And then I ask the person I'm meeting if they will recommend me somebody else to speak to. And depending on what my goal might be for that particular month or, in my networking, that might dictate who I ask for or if they know anybody that. And sometimes people know that straight away, and sometimes people will think about that and they'll come back to me a couple of days later and say, oh, I've had an idea. It'd be really great if you would meet up with this person, and if you like, I can introduce you. So it kind of like snowballs itself, really.
Now, obviously, over the last 18 months, most networking has been in the online space. We're starting now to see some face-to-face meetings coming back. How do you feel like about those as an introvert?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I've not really thought about that. I think for now my strategy is still the online space, and I think that's probably more to do with the other things that limit me from networking. So I live in a very rural area, so getting around to places is quite time consuming. And also I've still got children at home, so I don't necessarily have that, the time available to me to be able to be there for my family and also go out to fit in with the times that networking tends to be. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
is a
do. I
really
do
good
think
question.
that the pandemic forcing everything online has made networking so much more accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I network all over the world. Sometimes it's a struggle to, you've got to fit an early, Australia, you might be opposite ends of the day. But it means I can connect with people on that like-minded theme, irrespective of where we are. And I think that's something that you can't guarantee when you're showing up to a group, but you don't know who's turning up from week to week or month to month. And so it's harder to leverage that if you're looking to, you know, if you're looking to get referrals and ultimately get your clients from building relationships and use that as a strategy. I think there needs to be a little bit more certainty and control for you around that. So you get a say in who it is you're actually, you're meeting with. Saying that, you never know who's going to turn up and who
Yeah.
is going to have a connection. So you can't control it, if you know what I mean. But some of those factors, particularly for women, we are doing majority of the caring throughout the pandemic. We do have more limited time. We're normally the primary caregiver to children. So those things do really make a difference in us being able to be more visible out there, meeting more people. So yeah, for me, online networking is great.
Yeah, I think there is an element of luck involved sometimes in who's in the room at the same time as you. But on the other hand, we also make our own luck, don't we, by putting ourselves out there?
Yes, yeah. So you've got to showing up with an open mind and an open heart is a really is something that I try and bring to any networking whatsoever. And sometimes my purpose in networking is to help somebody else for that day. That's what it's there for. It just turns out that that's the way it's going to go. I think knowing why you're showing up helps.
Yes, yeah. To go with some kind of goal in mind.
Yes, yeah, because you're never going to see those things if you don't have an idea of that bigger picture in mind. It's just how you get there might look different to what you expected.
Yeah. So what kind of hints and tips could you give to other people who might describe themselves as introverts, who may be thinking, oh, I'd love to network, but I don't know whether that's really for me?
Yeah, it can be really, really tough. And I meet lots of people, in that who are quite nervous turning up to networking because it's a really big deal for them. I would say, spend some time with yourself, just getting to know what works for you and what doesn't. And the more you can know about that, then the better situation you're going to put yourself in when it comes to networking with others. So be really if you're not sure about the networking group that you're going to go to or turn up to, then ask beforehand. Don't feel silly or stupid for saying, how does your format work, and who can I expect to meet there, or what if I'm feeling shy, how might I fit in? And then the feedback you get will tell. We might go with that gut instinct of whether you think this is probably the right thing to do. If the idea of networking in a group scares you, then maybe start one-on-one and just maybe pick an easy route. Pick somebody that you know already that you can just try it out with. And work up from there, rather than throwing yourself into something and kind of leaving yourself dazed and confused afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you're going to a meeting for the first time and you're not sure how it's going to work, absolutely just ask, because it's in the interest of the other people in the room to make you feel comfortable, because then everyone's going to get the best out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think I would say that the most people I speak to, the thing they're worried about networking is about selling themselves. So they think, how am I don't know how to talk about myself, or I do, and then when somebody asks me, I just dry up. And I think that's a real common misconception about networking.
Yeah.
I would say networking is not for selling yourself at all. So,
Absolutely.
you can kind of put that to one side and don't worry about that. Networking is about building relationships and making a connection. So I would say if you've got 60 seconds to speak and that's all you want to do, then just tell them about something that happened to you that day, or what your favorite color is, or I don't know, what you had for tea last night, or what your interests are. Because people will remember you for that. They will the minute you start describing your products and how you sell them, and people just tune out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just approach it from that angle maybe, and it might make you feel more confident about the whole kind of like sales process and what you're doing there.
Yeah, that's great advice. So where do you see yourself and your business going next? I know you've just had a new website designed, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah, so that came from networking. So so there's me, I'm part of like a little group that we all meet up with, and Vera, who designed my website, she did that for me. I did some coaching for her. That's really helped me get really clear on who I serve best. So I'm really looking forward to offering that out to people that are interested. And in terms of networking, I'm still really focused on building relationships as the main strategy of growing my business and telling more people about what I do. I've just taken a course with a lady called Michelle Warner. She's got this amazing course called Networking That Pays, which is designed for introverts, which is fantastic. And it's all about becoming more intentional about how you're networking, and aligning the relationships you're making with the direction you want to build your business in. So I'm really looking forward to networking that just becomes more and more meaningful and feels like easier and easier. That's my target, really. No more crossing my fingers and shutting my eyes. I want to feel kind of like easy about what I'm doing. So
sounds like a good plan. So finally then, if people want to know more about you and your business, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yep, so the best way is either they can go through my website, which is changeyourbadge.com, or you can find me on Instagram, where my handle is slightly different. It's changeyoubadge. So the your is like shortened down. Okay. But yeah, you can find me hanging out on there and send me a message there.
Lovely. Well, it's been great to chat to you, Lisa, and best of luck with your business going forward.
Oh, thanks very much, Liz. It's been lovely to talk to you too.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.